Today, we're going to dive into a pretty dark fantasy parable. It's a story that puts two mythological heavy hitters, Wotan and Mephistopheles, head-to-head as absolute masters of manipulation. And as we'll see, their ancient stories are actually a chilling warning for our own modern world.
So let's start with the one question that really frames this whole explainer. Can a single word build a prison? I mean, can language itself, the thing we use to connect and create, actually become a cage? Just keep that question in the back of your mind as we get into this.
And with that, let's pull back the curtain on Act 1. We're not meeting a god and a devil in all their mythic glory. No, we're meeting something way more subtle. Two manipulators disguised and walking right among us.
You know, the source material calls them pathetic masters, which is such a telling phrase. Despite all their supposed power, there's something empty about them. Their influence isn't based on some divine right. It comes from just one thing: their total mastery of the word. The ability to use language, to use rhetoric, to literally shape how we see reality itself.
And here, you can see their shared playbook. They both put on what's called a wanderer's mask. For Wotan, it's a cloak and a wide-brimmed hat to hide his divinity. For Mephistopheles, it's the disguise of a smart, respectable intellectual. By embedding themselves in human society like this, they get to pull all the strings without ever having to face the consequences. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Their power isn't legitimate. It's not earned. It's built completely on a foundation of clever tricks, on strategic deception, what the source calls manipulative artifice. They're basically masters of the con. Okay, so let's move into Act 2 and see how they actually use this power, because now we get to the core of the problem. The very different but equally terrifying prisons they build with nothing but words. So first up is Wotan. What's his tool of choice? The runes. These are divine laws, literally carved into stone. They might have started out as symbols of wisdom and order, but they eventually become rigid, inflexible, and ultimately instruments of total control. And the result of this perfect unbending order? Well, it's a complete disaster. The entire universe just grinds to a halt. It's described as unproductive stagnation. Humanity gets lazy, complacently inactive. When there's no chaos, no struggle, there's just no growth. Wotan's perfect order created a perfect prison. But here's the twist. Where Wotan uses order to trap you, Mephistopheles wields chaos. His tools are legal contracts. He doesn't make new laws. No. He's a master at exploiting the loopholes in the laws that already exist. He uses the precision of language against itself to ensnare his victims. And this is the core dynamic of our whole parable. On one side, you've got Wotan's rigid, divine order. On the other, you have Mephistopheles' cunning, demonic wit. It's the clash between these two, absolute law versus the absolute loophole, that creates the friction, the struggle, that actually allows humanity to evolve. Which brings us to the climax in Act 3. This is all about Wotan's pretty shocking solution to the prison he himself created, and what it means for the rest of us. So, Wotan finally sees it. He recognizes the cosmic decay his laws have caused, and his solution is, well, it's radical. He decides to destroy himself. He strategically wills his own end, gives up his power, and becomes what the source calls a destructive catalyst. He realizes he has to burn down the old world to let a new one grow from the ashes. This is the turning point. The hero, Siegfried, shatters Wotan's spear, the very symbol of his divine law. Now, this isn't just a fight, it's a symbolic transfer of power. The old, rigid authority of the gods is broken, and it's surrendered to a new, free humanity. And the result of all this? Absolute freedom. For the very first time, humanity's fate is actually in its own hands. Enlightenment isn't something that's just handed down from a god anymore. It has to be earned, through struggle, through choice, through the very friction that Wotan's sacrifice made possible. But wait, because the story doesn't end there. In our coda, we have to leave the world of myth behind and see how these ancient archetypes erupted into our own history with absolutely terrifying consequences. This is where the psychoanalyst Carl Jung comes into the picture. He argued that Wotan wasn't just a myth. No, he was a real, volatile psychic force that was just lying dormant inside the collective unconscious, the shared, inherited memories and ideas of an entire people, just waiting for the right moment to wake up. So, Jung defined this Wotan archetype as this primal energy of storm and fury. It's an irrational force that can literally possess an entire nation, sweeping away reason and replacing it with a kind of collective, ecstatic madness. And here is the truly chilling connection. Jung looked at the rise of National Socialism in Germany, and he saw the Wotan archetype awakened. He saw an entire nation making what he called a Faustian pact with the devil, trading their souls for a sense of power and destiny, completely possessed by this ancient, stormy force. And this reveals the really profound warning of our parable. These aren't just old stories. The same dark, primordial energies that fueled these myths, they're not gone. They continue to haunt the human psyche, and they can still drive the great tragedies of our modern world. So let's just break this all down, side by side. Look at Wotan. His tool is the word as law, those rigid, unchangeable runes. The result? Entrapment by order, a prison of stagnation. His legacy is a prison that needs to be shattered. Now look at Mephisto. His tool is the word as loophole, those cunning, deceptive contracts. The result is entrapment by chaos, a web of confusion. And his legacy is a temptation that must be resisted. It's law versus loophole, order versus chaos. Two sides of the exact same manipulative coin. Ultimately, when you look at this whole parable, the lesson is pretty powerful and honestly a little unsettling. Real history, it isn't always shaped by noble actions or moral truths. It's written by those with masterful rhetoric, the ones who can control the narrative, shape perception, and wield the word most effectively. And so that leaves us with a final question, a big one. If control over language really is the ultimate power, who are the Wotans and the Mephistopheleses of our time, whose masterful rhetoric is building the prisons or offering the freedoms that are going to define our future?